Hi everyone, good morning. So today we are going to be learning how to make a layered ball gown. And for today's tutorial, we're going to be using a 1-year-old for our case study. This is the dress we are going to be making. Okay, a layered ball gown. So what to do first of all is to get your doll face fabric and then cut out your flare. So after folding out your flare like this, you go ahead and cut. But now you have to consider, because the upper part of this dress has a band. Okay, the upper part of this dress has a band up here. There's a band here, so we have to make it, the upper part has to be in excess so that we'll have enough space for our elastic. So instead of using the normal measurements, we're going to double the waist measurement. Okay, so now we'll go down by 8 inches because I want excess, so I'm going to be using 8. For the chest, so that by the time we open it, it's going to be in excess. The full length of a year-old is 24 inches, but we're going to take out our strap measurement. Okay, the spaghetti strap. So let us use 2 inches for our spaghetti strap, or let's say 2.5. Let's take out 2.5 inches for our spaghetti strap. Okay, so we're going to take out 2.5 and then measure our full length, and our full length is 24. Okay, our full length is 24. Let's make it 3 inches instead. 3 inches for our spaghetti strap, then our full length is 24. Okay, so 24, I'm going to mark down 24 all the way around. 24 inches. Considering your spaghetti strap measurement, don't forget the spaghetti strap measurement. Okay, so I've gone ahead to mark this place down, and this is 24 inches. So now we're going to go ahead and cut. I'm cutting out this upper part and then this lower part. So let's go ahead and cut. So we have cut out our flare. So we'll go ahead and open it now. So when we open it, this is what we have. Okay, let us measure and see what we have. We have 30 inches. So we have 30 inches, which is just fine. So this is our flare. So the next thing to do is to hem the down part. I'm going to hem it, sew it, and then iron round. So the next thing to do is to cut the bias tape of where the band is going to go through. Okay, because we have to cover this place up. So I'm going to cut out 4 inches. 4 inches for the tape. So I'm cutting 4 inches for our bias tape. Okay, 4 inches for our elastic band. Sorry, I mean to say So we cut out 4 inches. And remember that this area is 30 inches. The chest is 30 inches. So the bias tape should be 30 inches long as well. So this is 30 inches over 4. And then we keep it aside. So the next thing to do is to cut our spaghetti sleeve. So our spaghetti sleeve is going to be 2 inches wide and 10 inches long, because this area is going to be tied up like this. Okay, so we have to make it in excess. Instead of cutting it as 6 inches, we're going to make it 10, and we're cutting 4 of the strips. Okay, so I've gone ahead to cut 4 of the strips. Okay, but I decided to cut the strips to be 16 inches long instead of 10, because since we are going to tie it up, we need it in excess so that it can form a bow after tying. So that's why I cut it longer. So this is 16 inches long, and there are about 4 strips, because 2 is going to one is going to be here, one is going to be attached here, the other one is going to the other side. Okay, one is going to be attached here and the other one is going to the other side, so that you can raise it up and then tie it. So the next thing we are going to do is to sew all of these strips. Sew it and then iron. So let me go right ahead and sew these strips and hem it down. Then I'll show you guys what it looks like. So I've gone ahead to iron the strips, the 4 of them. See, and they are looking very neat. And I also sewed and I hemmed it down, then I ironed. So I'm going to keep this aside. The next thing we're going to do is to get our bias for the elastic. So what you're going to do now is to sew this elastic, sew this bias on the bust part. Okay, so you're going to get it this way and then sew. Can you see? You place it this way and then sew. So let me sew it, then I'll show you the next step. So I've gone ahead to sew this. Okay, so after sewing, the next thing we're going to do now is to turn it to the right side. Okay, and then sew. I'm going to put this inside like this. Okay, and sew. Let me use a pin to illustrate so that you can see how we are going to sew it. I'm going to sew it this way. So as you sew it and move, you keep folding it this way and sewing. Keep folding and sewing. Okay, because this space here is where the elastic band is going to sit. So we're going to do this all around. Fold it round and sew it all the way round. So let me go right ahead and sew it, then I'll show you guys the next step. Don't forget to pin it all around before you sew. Okay, because it's going to be more easier for you this way to pin. So you have to pin it all around before you go ahead and sew. After sewing, then you iron. Make sure it's flat. So let me go right ahead and do that, then I'll show you guys what it looks like. So I've gone right ahead to sew and iron this part, the upper side. I can see how neat it's looking. So this is the back and this is the front. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to do fix the two nets on the dress. So you're going to get your chalk and then cut out 1 inch by the side. Mark out 1 inch by the side. If you want to have half inch, because that's why you're going to sew. Or let's say 1/4 inch by the side instead of 1 inch, because this dress does not have zip. It's just elastic. So we just need the allowance for where we are going to sew. Okay, so you can mark out 1/4 inch on both sides. So you mark it on both sides. The next thing we're going to do now is to cut the layers of the two nets. Okay, so what we're going to do now we're looking at this dress. You can see that the first 2 layers are longer than the remaining 3 layers. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to cut the first layer, mark the first layer. So remember I said your doll face fabric has to be 2 inches shorter than the net, right? So we're going to mark out your 2 inches right here. Then you mark out 5.5 from this doll face. So it means that your first layer is going to be, by the time you put your tape rule from this marking to these 2 inches, is going to give us 7 inches. So we primed with 5.5. Okay, we primed with 5.5. So by the time you put your tape rule from this marking to these 2 inches here, it's going to give you 7.5. But before you do that, continue. Just draw a line that you can refer to in the middle or anywhere on your doll face fabric, on your flare, so that you can refer to the line. So the first line is 7.5. Okay, so you get your pen and paper and write down 7.5. So you write down your marking. So since this gave you 7.5, you can decide to cut it 8, because half inch is going to go for the sewing allowance. Okay, so the next layer now is going to be 5 inches apart as well. The next layer is going to be 5 inches apart. 5 inches apart. Okay, so the third layer is going to be 3 inches apart. The fourth layer is going to be 3 inches apart as well. Okay, so the layers are 1, 2, 3. There are 5 layers. Okay, the first layer, we primed the first layer with 5.5. The second layer is 5 inches apart. The third layer is 3 inches apart. The fourth layer is also 3 inches apart. Same thing goes to the fifth layer. Okay, so now when cutting your net, this is what we're going to cut. Don't forget to be writing them down, if not you're going to forget. The second layer is 5 inches apart. So now, since this is 5 inches apart, now we don't want the net to stop here. Okay, so we're going to cut the net to be 7 inches. The second layer of net is going to be cut at 7 inches. Remember the first layer was 7.5, right? And then we cut the net to be 8 inches. So the second layer, the distance between this place and this place is 5 inches. But instead of cutting our net to be 5 inches, because we want the net to go down to cover the first layer, okay? So it means that the second layer is going to be 7 inches. So by the time you sew it, it's going to cover this second layer. So now the second layer is going to be 7 inches. You can even make it 6 inches if you want. 6 or 7 inches. So the third layer is going to be 5 inches. The third layer is going to be 5 inches. That means what I mean is the net you're going to cut is going to be 5 inches. Why? The distance between this place and this place is 3 inches. So we have to cut the tool net in excess so that it can cover whatever we have sewn right here, okay? So the third layer is going to be cut as 5 inches. The fourth layer is going to be cut as 5 inches as well, okay? While the fifth layer is going to be cut as 4 inches. The fifth layer is going to be cut as 4 inches. The fifth layer is going to be cut as 4 inches. Why? Because the distance between this place and this place is not really much, so and we want it to be shorter, okay? So that's why it's going to be cut as 4 inches. The next thing you're going to do now is to mark your fabric round. All of these lines that you have marked here, you're going to go right ahead and mark it round. Make sure you write the distance between this place and this place so that you don't forget, so that you remember how to mark it round, okay? And the first layer, you remember we primed with 5.5. So we're going to go right ahead and mark it 5.5 all the way around, okay? I'm going to mark this 5.5. I'm going to mark it all the way around, 5.5 all the way around, because we want this to be equal. By the time we sew the net to this door face, it's going to be very straight, okay? It's not going to be bent. So you have to make sure you get your markings right. So 5.5. So let's go right ahead and mark this first layer 5.5 all the way around. So I've gone ahead to mark this 5.5 all the way round to the end of the flare. So the next layer now, the distance between this place and this place is 5 inches. So we're going to go right ahead and mark it round, 5 inches all the way round, okay? So let's go right ahead and do that. So I've gone right ahead to mark this 5 inches all the way round to the end of the fabric. So the next layer now, the distance between this place and this place is 3 inches. So I'm going to go right ahead and mark this round as well, and then mark the fourth one as well all the way round. The distance between this place and this place is also 3 inches. So we're going to mark it round, this third layer and the fourth layer. So I've gone right ahead to mark this all the way around, okay? So all of these lines now, this is where our two net is going to be sewn, okay? So the next thing we're going to do now is to get our two nets and cut. So the next thing to do is to fold your two like this, okay? After folding, then you trim out the trim the upper side, upper part, so that it will be very equal. After trimming, you get your measurements. Remember those measurements we wrote down. So we are going to cut them now. I remember the first layer, I said the first layer is 8 inches, okay? So I'm going to go right ahead and cut and mark out 8 inches. Mark 8 inches. After marking 8 inches, let's go right ahead and cut. This 8 inches now that we have marked, we are going to cut it into, we are going to cut 3 of this. This is 10 yards of 2, okay? So we are going to cut 3 of these 8 inches. Or let's cut 2 first. But as we sew, if these 2 strips is not enough, then we can add more. The next layer is 7 inches. So I'm going to cut down 7 inches, 2 of it as well. 2 of the 7 inches, okay? 2 of the 7 inches for the next layer. So this is one, and we're going to cut another one again. So each of the layers is going to be cut at 2 strips of this 10 yards, okay? But as you sew, make sure you have excess nets, so that if the net is not enough, you can add more. Like for this tutorial, I got 20 yards of 2 nets. So let me go right ahead and cut the remaining strips, then I'll show you what it looks like. So I've gone ahead to cut all of the strips, okay? And this is what we have. So 10 yards was what I used to cut all of this. But while sewing, if it's not full enough for me, I'm going to add more layers to it to make it fuller, okay? So I have another extra 10 yards I've kept aside in case this is not giving me what I want, then I'll add more. So let's go right ahead and sew. So the next thing we're going to do now is to sew the first layer, okay? So we're going to get the first layer and make ruffles out of it. We're going to make a ruffle out of this. There are 2 ways of making ruffles. You can either do a basting stitch. That means you draw a loose stitch right here all the way around, and then pull out the thread and pull it out, or you use your ruffler foot to do your ruffles. I guess you have seen my video on how to make ruffles with a ruffler foot and without a ruffler foot. So in case you don't have a ruffler foot, you do a basting stitch. So let's go right ahead and sew the first layer. So I've gone ahead to sew the first layer. I did the ruffles and then I sewed it on the first layer, and the 2 strips was enough for me to sew it. So it means that 10 yards is going to sew this dress for a year-old baby, okay? So I'm just going to keep my remaining fabric and use it for something else. So now I'm going to go right ahead and sew the remaining part of the remaining layers of this dress. The same way I have done to this first layer is the same way I'm going to do to the remaining layers. Okay, I'm going to sew them all round. So let me go right ahead and sew it, then I'll show you what it looks like. So I've gone ahead to sew everything, and you can see how full the dress looks. Okay, so this is the dress. I'm gonna have to sew it round to the tip. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to attach the lining. So the lining is meant to be 2 inches shorter than this doll face fabric. Okay, so let me go ahead and measure it and cut it, then I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. So I've gone right ahead to cut and hem the down part of this lining. So the next thing that we're going to do now is to put our hard net into this. Okay, so we're going to mark it. You can come down by, let's say, 2 inches from the top, and then mark it round. This is where you're going to sew. Okay, come down by 2 inches and mark it all the way round to the end of the fabric. So your hard net is going to be cut your hard net is going to be cut at 10 inches long. So your hard net is going to be 10 inches long. Okay, so let me go ahead and cut the hard net. I've gone ahead to cut the hard net. So this is 10 inches long, 10 inches long and 60 inches wide. Okay, so I'm going to go, and I have two of the strips. I have 2 strips of this hard net. So I'm going to go right ahead and sew it on the lining. While sewing, you make little pleats. Don't start from the beginning of this place. Okay, start sewing from somewhere here, because of the sewing allowance. You have to leave the sewing allowance. Okay, let's go right ahead and sew this. So we're going to place the hard net on top of the lining this way, and then you make little pleats while you sew. Make little pleats while you sew. So I've gone right ahead to sew the hard net to the lining like this. So the next thing we're going to do now is to get our ball gown and then sew it to the ball gown. Attach it to the ball gown. As you sew, make little pleats. As you sew, make little pleats. Okay, as you sew, make little pleats as you move. Okay, so let me go right ahead and sew this to the ball gown, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I've gone right ahead to attach the lining to the ball dress. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do now is to get our bias tape and sew it round like so, because we have to cover these rough edges. So let me go right ahead and sew the bias tape, then I'll show you what it looks like. So I've gone ahead to sew it at this other side. Okay, after sewing the first side, okay, I now turned it this way and I folded it inside, and then I pinned it all around. So I'm going to go right ahead and sew all of these parts where I've pinned, and I'll show you what it looks like. I've gone right ahead to sew this part. You can see how neat it's looking. So after sewing, you can iron, okay, so that it will be this neat and flat. So now this is the back. You can see how neat it looks, and this is the front. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to fix in our elastic band. Okay, we're going to fix our elastic inside I'm going to fix our elastic in here. So now this is our 1-inch elastic. Next thing to do is to get your safety pin and then insert it inside. Then you pass it through this area. Pass it through so that the elastic can be inside. Okay, so you go right ahead and pass it. So after passing your elastic, go ahead and sew this part so that the elastic does not remove and fall out. After sewing it, then you reduce the elastic. Okay, so it's not meant to be so tight because this is for a 1-year-old baby. Okay, so I'm going to leave little space. The next thing to do is to stitch it right here. Okay, sew it right here. Then you cut out the remaining elastic and keep it aside. Okay, so the next thing to do is to turn it to the back and then sew this part. You raise your lining up like this and sew it all the way down. Sew it all the way down. Okay, you sew this all the way down. So let me go right ahead and sew this. And you also turn it to the doll face area as well, and then sew this part down as well. Sew it all the way down and close this area. So let's go right ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I've gone ahead to sew the doll face and the lining. Okay, so I'm going to close it this way, and this is how neat it looks. Can you see how neat it looks? Very neat. This is where we have sewn. So now we are going to close this area. I'm going to close this area with my zigzag stitch. So I've gone right ahead to close and overlock this part. So the next thing we're going to do now is to turn it to the front part. Turn this to the front part like this, like so, okay? And this part is going to be the side, okay? It's going to be the side. So what you're going to do next is to get your tape rule and measure from the side. Measure about 2.5 inches from the side and mark. So that is where the strip is going to be. Mark it front and back, okay, so that you know where the strip is going to be, front and back. So that it will be easy for you to. So the next thing to do is to get your strip, okay? Get your strip and put it inside like this. Then you pin it down in place so that you know where to sew. So now you're going to take it to your machine and do a back stitch here, just a little, just to hold this in place, and do the same thing to this other side as well, okay? You do a back stitch there, do it several times so that it's going to hold it properly. So you do the same thing to the front, you do the same thing to this part, you do the same thing to the 4 sides. So let me go right ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I've gone right ahead to sew the 4 sides, okay? And this is what we have. This is what we have. So I'll go right ahead and tie a bow up here for the sleeve. So now this is what we have. So now this is what we have now. Our dress is super pretty already. So that's all. So we have come to the end of our tutorial. That is all on how to make a layered ball gown. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching this video. Do have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.